Good evening. On behalf of the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, I'd like to welcome you to another one of our Learn About Letchworth series. Excuse me. This year, the series title is A Sense of Place. And next week, it'll be with Doris Bannister on Cemeteries of Wyoming County. We also want to acknowledge the JCON Enterprises, the Arts Council for Wyoming County, and the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation who put on this series. We also have several events coming up to end the season for the summer. There'll be the Summer Farewell Festival in September, and we also have the Arts and Crafts Show in October. And the last of this month, on the 28th and 29th, we have the Stone Tool Technology Show. My name's Brian Scriven, and I'm the Historic Site Manager here, and I'm going to turn it over to Karen Canning for tonight's program.
Hi, good evening. Some of you are becoming familiar faces to me. That's great. This series seems to have a nice contingent of regular attendees, and that's wonderful. I know that Letchworth Park is really happy to have you back again and again, and so are we. I just want to mention as well that this evening's performance and presentation is, got there, now I can see everybody, is sponsored in part by the Arts Council for Wyoming County, and in particular our Folk Arts program. And I'm the administrator of that program in Wyoming County and in several other counties around here. And basically what we do is we document and present all kinds of local arts and culture and traditions. Everything from wood carvers and stone carvers and quilters and ethnic traditions to music and dance, which is of course part of the subject tonight. And I'll just draw your attention to a little flyer that's on the back table. It looks like this. If you are interested in knowing more about our regional folk arts program, you can take one of these with you. There's also some other information on the tables and back there, and you can pick up some of those things. And as some of you have already discovered, there's something for sale back there too, so we'll talk about that a little more as we go along. This is a mixture tonight of some music and some stories, and I've warned members of the band for the last few weeks that I'm going to be bothering them tonight a little bit. They don't get to just sit and play. The fun part about doing the work that I do is I get to go and spend time with some of these people, and I get to sit down and talk with them, and I get to hear all the stories. If you're to dance or something, you might not get to hear all those stories. So this is your chance tonight. We'll see how many lies they can tell. We're going to start off tonight with the old timers playing a tune, and then we'll get into a little bit of conversation.
Riding down the Santa Fe, across the mountains and across the bay, see that sunset low in the west. In that land I love it the best. Here we go, I won't be long. Gotta see a preacher by hell I know, and then we'll hit that trail. Yonder we'll go, right down to Santa Fe. Right down to Santa Fe. Little guitar.
almost a crime to have them stop, isn't it? That's okay. They're going to play a lot more. Many of you may know that Kelly's Old Timers recently, in the last few years, celebrated their 50th anniversary of being a band, which, yeah, yay! Quite an accomplishment. But the Kelly family of musicians goes back a bit further than that. I know it goes back at least to, get it right here, Sam and Mary, Roger's grandparents. And I have we have various publications that we've done in years past, and I'll pass this around so you can see the picture. They were married in 1882. Sam played fiddle, Mary played piano, and not surprisingly, their 4 children all played music as well. Let's see, now see if I can get this right. This is what Jim Kimball wrote down a few years ago. So we had Warren on clarinet, Helen on piano, Edna on violin, and Lloyd, Roger's dad, on cornet and trombone. Here's a picture of the Kelly Orchestra about 1917. I'll pass this around so you can actually see it better. And they advertised for socials, dances, weddings, right here in Perry Center, New York, which looks a little sleepy today, but I'm sure it wasn't always that way. I'm sure it kicks up its heels now, too.
On Halloween.
So this fellow here with the trombone is Roger's dad. And Roger, what do you remember of your dad playing and the kind of stuff that he used to do?
He was basically when I remember him after the band they quit playing, I think in the 20s, but they always had he was in citizen band, and Perry always had a citizen band. They played all through the summer, and he was part of that organizer. And I sat many a night underneath that bandstand, under the stoplight in Perry. There wasn't, I don't think, a stoplight there then, but they put the bandstand right in the middle of the main street. And they'd play there many nights. I'd lay under that bandstand listening to the feet tap and like that. But then my dad got sick in 1935, and he didn't play for quite a while. But then he got going again. And, but they all played. The family. We always had at holidays. We would have they'd all get together and play all kinds of music. They liked the Austrian type music, Strauss, Laird, and all that stuff. They played that. They loved that. And my grandfather loved the Strauss waltzes. That was the big thing then.
Yeah.
That was before the Beatles.
Sure, in the teens it was, things like some of the old quadrilles and some polkas and waltzes and schottisches and things like that in that era. And then just in the 30s, when I think you were starting to come out and start playing, things had changed a lot. Microphones had come in, the era of sound systems, and violins were still around, but things like the saxophone were coming in to kind of push the clarinet aside as a lead instrument, and also the trumpet instead of the cornet. And you had amplified sound, and you had singing square dance calls and things of that nature, and newer music, quote, newer music, some more swingy and jazzy type things, and one-steps and foxtrots. So that was the era that you really started getting going. You guys can play some of that, can't you?
Sure. I used to use the megaphone when I was a kid. And then when they didn't have a megaphone, they used to use those old buttermilk things. They were small at the top and big at the bottom, and they cut that off. They used that to call square dances through. Anyway, to get to the back of the hall, they'd holler and yell, And, a lot of fun. What do we got?
Oh, Ain't She Sweet, that's a good example. Listen to that one. Ain't She Sweet? I'll see.
We always have to make sure we start in the same key. sweet. See you walking down the street. Ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Ain't she nice? Look over once or twice. Ask you very confidentially, ain't she nice? Well, ask her now, her direction. Feel my that perfection. I repeat, don't you think it's kinda neat? Ask her very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Take it, sweet. See you walking down the street. Ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Ain't she nice? Look over once or twice. Ask you very confidentially, ain't she? Well, ask her now, her direction. Feel mine, ain't that perfection? That's pretty good for Tuesday night. Usually a band stinks on Monday and Tuesday. Worst job I ever played was over to Dalton on Labor Day. They thought they'd draw a crowd over there. Nobody came and the band stunk. The only thing that enjoyed it was the flies and the mosquitoes. And there weren't many of them. I never forgot that. Okay, boss, you got it.
Well, I've heard a lot of stories about, especially in the era before television, for example, a lot of times people would be making their own entertainment. You wouldn't necessarily go out, you would make it at home, and you'd learn some of your music at home and have dances and even house parties, and other such activities. I wanted to read a little quote, and we'll see if we get some more memories out of this one too. Something that some of you might remember is the horning bee. Who doesn't know what a horning bee is? Raise your hand.
Not a hard cider.
That's all right. Not a hard cider. Yeah, people. I see someone here. That's fine. A horning bee was basically after a couple got married, you would go over to their house and bring all of your noise makers and all your ratchets and try to scare them out of the house on their wedding night. The idea to get them to come out, and then you'll have a dance, or maybe not have a dance. If there are musicians there, you might have a dance and kick it up a little bit, but to disturb them. I want to read a little story here, which took place up in Genesee County. Certainly there are many horning bees around here too, I'm sure, and some of you might have some stories of that. I think my mom even has a story about that. This was told by Clarence Mayer, an old-time fiddler from up in near Bergen, New York, and he died in the early 90s at the age of 98 or something. Played his first dance in 19 teens or 20s, and played fiddle for years and years, and was a regular at some of the programs here. He'd get up and play some tunes, and so his memory went back a long ways, back into the end of the 19th century. This is a story he told. We wrote it down. The Great Horning on Conlin Road. I'll tell you a story. I was playing down to the Rose Garden in Bergen. I was supposed to play at 2 o'clock. Anyway, Albert Kelly, not these guys, calls me up and says, Clarence, we're going to horn Freddie Conlon tomorrow night. So I went down. It was right over there on the Conlon Road. Anyway, we went over. They got married, and they just got back on the wedding trip, wherever they went. And when I got over there, they'd started, trying to get them out. The idea was to get them out, and they'd buy a keg of beer, and we'd dance until the beer was gone. That's the idea. Well, there was the damnedest noise you ever heard. When I got there, the horns were blowing. They had the old blacksmith anvil. Did you ever hear one of them? You could hear it. I could hear it when I turned off the lake road. And they wouldn't get up. So the boys got sick of that. So they went out. He had about 12 little pigs, weigh about 50 pounds apiece. So they went out and got all those pigs and put them in the window. All that squealing, and they still wouldn't get up. God, we thought that would get them up. But they didn't come out. The pigs were making more noise than we could make. So anyway, Albert says, I know how we'll get them out. They used to burn wood in them days, had a chimney, So we went out in the barn, we got a burlap sack and we soaked it in water, got a ladder, got up on the chimney and put it in there, shut the chimney off. We smoked them out. They come out then, but what a mess. We had to clean the mess up. And the pigs, we had to get the pigs out of there. So he comes down, boy was he mad. He gives the boys the money, and one of those guys goes up to town to get a keg of beer. By the time they got back, we had the pig mess cleaned up. They made a mess in the house, stink. Oh, God. Well, anyway, we cleaned that all up, and by the time the boys got back, we had everything ready. And they danced till pretty near morning before the beer was gone. What a dance we had. Oh, there was a crowd. There must have been 55 of us all together, couples. That is, once we got them up, we went and got the women and we danced. The women wasn't in on the horning. So that was a real common occurrence around here. And I don't know if you guys had anything to add to that at this moment.
Hornings, yes.
Matt, I know there's a few stories about some pretty wild times at some dances.
Yeah.
We used to call them shivery, too.
That's right. Bart Brothers used to play, and Francis was a left-handed fiddle player. And he didn't quibble about anything. If somebody, he was calling dance, if they didn't get it, he'd swat them right across the butt with a bow. I had an aunt, she was always going the wrong way. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I remember when I was a kid, they had one, and somebody got a bottle and hit it in a wood pile, and they were, these boys, a lot of them, some of you folks knew these guys, but they got in the outhouse was right on the back end, and they got in there fighting over that jug of white lightning in there, and that thing was up on stilts, and I swore it was going to tip over. They were in there fighting. My aunt come out, and she was going to kill them all. That was everybody thinking. But you got, oh, never mind. I played guitar.
I was privileged to a horning. My wife Valerie and I, we had one of those back in 1985. I didn't even know what they were until the whole family encircled the house and got us to come out.
How did they get you to come out?
Well, I just didn't know what the noise was, and then I looked in the windows or out of the windows, and there's all the relatives staring in the windows at us and all doing this. Well, I think we're supposed to come out now, so we came out. And then they brought all the food in. We had a big party for the rest of the night.
So it still happens sometimes. Look out, you young kids out there. What happened to you? Why don't you play a couple? We're gonna talk about Woody Kelly here, who started the band. A couple, but I think we need to hear a little bit more music too. So
Sure. Why don't we do kind of a ballad? This is a song that's on the CD that we recorded. We'll talk about what we did on that CD and stuff in a little while, but this is an old standard. Dad, when was this written? I have to ask you. Sentimental Journey. 20s, 30s, early 40s, something like that?
I started playing during the war. Ben Crosby, I don't know when it was written.
Great song, great song. Sentimental Journey.
anticipation. I spent each time I can, like a child with wild anticipation. I long to hear that all along. Sit round, that's when we'll be been settled, waiting up for heaven, counting every mile, railroad track that gets me back. I never thought my heart could be so young. Why did I decide to go? I'm gonna take a sentimental journey, sentimental journey home. Sentimental journey, I'm gonna set my eyes. I'm gonna take a sentimental journey to new old memories. I got my bag, got my reservation. That's when each time I can home, like a child with wild anticipation. I long to hear that all along. Whoa, seven, that's when we'll be been settled. I'm waiting for heaven, counting every mile, railroad track that gets me back. I thought heart could be so young. Why did I decide to go? I'm gonna take a sentimental journey, sentimental journey home. I'm gonna take a sentimental journey, sentimental journey. Now and then we look at each other. If you ever notice us looking at each other, it's definitely not because we know exactly what's going on. When you're working with guys, as long as I've worked with everybody here and they've worked with me, and you get a sense, even though you don't know exactly sometimes where you're going, it just takes a look or a listen, and you kind of figure out where you're headed. Because every now and then we all lose track of where we are up here. Absolutely, but that's kind of what jazz is about. You lose track, and then you get back on track. Hopefully.
Just like marriage. Get the look, you know what to do.
Didn't know you were going to get sage advice tonight either, did you? I mentioned earlier that Kelly's Old Timers was started around 1950 by Woody Kelly. Now Woody was Lloyd Irwood Kelly, but known as Woody for practically his whole life, I imagine. That's Roger's brother and was Doug's father. So,
Go ahead, say mother.
I guess. I think all of you had the same mother and father, I think, right? Yeah.
That's what they tell me.
I wondered, Roger, if you would tell us a little about how Woody started playing accordion back in the 30s when Roxy would come around.
Well, he'd come around, about like 1934, 35. I was just a little tyke, and Roxy'd sell accordions and teach, and they was all over. I mean, he had students all over, and Woody got going on it, and then he started, he went on WHEC, I can remember just like it was yesterday. That was a big deal in those days. And he went down there and with his little push-button accordion, there's a picture around of him, and he got on there and got so he could play accordion pretty good, and then he played with the Barth brothers, and that was that deal. I was telling that Horning, Francis and John Barth and Woody, and let's see who else was in that aggregation or aggravation. Well, I can't. But anyways, and then Elmer Brewer got a hold of him, and they started the X-Checks in 1939 or 40. And they played they started up at Doolittle Hall in Weathersfield, which is long gone, but they played there for quite a while. Kenny Lau and Lynn Rowley. Let's see who else played. Keith Morgan played bass, Brewer, Woody. And then it just kept going on. And then after he got out of service, he came home and he played around with different bands. And then he formed the Old Timers around 1949, 50, along in there sometime. And then I went off to service in the Korean War, and when I come back, I went with him. But his band was going before. So that's the story there.
Roxy is Roxy Kakamies from Batavia, New York, Italian-American musician, accordion player who went off and met a young lady accordion player in Niagara Falls, and they got married and established Roxy's Music Store, which is still in operation in Batavia. It's run by Rose Kakamies, their daughter, and they were the suppliers for accordions for this half the state. And actually, you can still go there and see some of the beautiful old instruments stacked up around the walls and such. And they were just household names. And as Roger was saying, he traveled around the countryside selling accordions and selling lessons. And those two started out with, I believe it was 2 accordions and $4, and built their business from there. Another thing that was happening in the 30s and 40s was radio stations were switching more to programs that featured things like country music and popular music. They had been a little more urban-centered music, Tin Pan Alley and some more of the urban band sounds. Around the late 30s and 40s, there was more of country music coming out on the radio stations and on the local radio stations. And around here, that was a welcome change and something that people could recognize and enjoy. And some of the stations would have promotional shows, amateur shows. Roger at one point told about being in an amateur show, a competition that Pie Plant Pete put on to promote his radio show. I don't know if you have I kind of would like to hear about that. Do you know anyone?
Well, they were on the radio station, and before that was Hank and Herb. And I know some of the old timers remember WHAM, and they were on there. We went down there and watched them. That was in the old Sagamore Hotel, and put on the show. But they would come out and do talent, you know, and every mother had a little darling kid that played something. They'd bring them in, you know, and they'd get on there, and I know. So we'd win $5 first prize. That was everything. I mean, that was the Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building, the whole thing, all thrown in. And we would compete. And Pie Plant Pete and Bashful Harmonica Joe. He just died. Joe just died here a little while ago. I think it was in Cleveland. But anyways, those were really a lot of fun. They usually held them in the school gymnasiums or auditoriums, and we'd go up and we had high hopes of getting the first prize. But I I used to get beat out by the same girl every time. She did her little imitation of Shirley Temple in the Good Ship Lollipop. She lived over Pavilion now, I guess. Anyway, that was they were a big deal. I had a lot of those.
Well, I know one thing that Kelly's did a lot was, of course, square dance music. You got something along those lines?
Square dance music, sure. No, you want to do one? You want me to do one? Okay. We'll do, of course, a really quick version of a square dance, but it's kind of fun to have the band as we have it. I know when the band kind of switched over from accordion and stuff, some people were, I don't want to say disappointed, but I think there was a few people that may have had a hard time hearing the changeover to go into guitar and trumpet and things like that. But people have grown accustomed to the way we are now, and we still try to do the same square dances. Of course, there's a couple types of square dances, as Karen mentioned. There's the traditional with the jigs and the reels and the quadrilles and things like that. And then there's kind of what we do, even though we do some of the other stuff, which is swinging square dances, which is taking an old-time tune. We'll do Alabama Jubilee, and then we swing it a little bit, and people square dance like that. So let's do a little bit of Alabama Jubilee. Here we go.
Join up your hands now, we're going back. Going again in the same old track. And we look that corner with a great high road. Little bit high, a little bit low. Come on, honey, let's go. First up the round way outside, round way the girl by your side. The other way back in the same old track, the other way back around. Watch your step, watch your step, watch your step, watch. Right hand up, don't you forget that. Right left forward with a left hand up. Go back home and swing on and Alabama Jubilee. Join up your hands and it's forward and back. Forward again in the same old track. Alabama left that corner with a grand old riding flag. Little high and a little low. Come on, honey, let's go. Take it off, fellas. That's a little bit different than the traditional type of square dance, but it works and people love to dance to it.
Play something else.
We played those all over. When Woody was running the band, we played through Kodak Park, Rochester Telephone, a lot of industry parties and everything, and they loved that sound in the square dancing. Kodak was, you wouldn't believe how many people came to Kodak in that big building, building, what? 28, thank you. And big gymnasium, double gymnasium upstairs there. Man, they packed that thing full, and they had that big thing that with the lights, you know, going around, the chandelier. God, it was beautiful in it. And everybody come in there, and that whole floor, it was something else. I never forgot it. And we played, Arthur Godfrey had, he called him the world's champion square dance caller, and he came from Connecticut out here and called with us. I can't even remember the guy's name now, but he said, "You guys jazz everything up. We don't do that out east." And I never forgot that. But he loved it. He loved it. He liked the. So I just wanted to throw that one in.
There's actually, on the CD, there's a couple, how many recordings from Kodak Park, Doug? 2 or 3? Yeah, there's at least 2 or 3 from the Kodak Christmas party of 1950. I can't remember. I think it's on the inner sleeve, but there's some live recordings from the Kodak Christmas party from back in the 50s that are on the CD that we found.
Arch Groth was in charge of maintenance down there, and he had a recording studio up there, and he used to record the whole thing and on tape, and he'd make us discs if we wanted them. That was like 1953 and 4 or 5, along in there.
I think since we're talking about the swing influence and the jazz influence a little bit here, we'll do a bit of New Orleans or Dixieland. That's something that's been a pleasure for us to do since we've had Guy playing with the band. And we'll put him on the spot and have him do a little New Orleans. Original jazz, the real stuff from way back in the early 1900s. Indiana. I just want to interject real quick. I grew up with my dad playing guitar like this. And it never, and I'm going to toot his horn a little bit, and I know I'm a bit partial. But I never realized till just a few years ago what he was really doing. It was just Dad playing guitar until I got out there in the world of music and started working with some other musicians and some other people. And never realized what he could do on the guitar, and that he was doing things far above even some of the biggest name stars in this country were doing. And so I appreciate it, and thank you. And he's still doing it at 75 years old. That's what amazes me. Dan, why don't you tell me about, who your influences were and what got you going?
Oh dear, long story, but anyway, I'll make it short. You gotta have it in your heart. That's where it's at. Be a good cook, be a good musician, be good at anything. You gotta have a passion and a heart, and I love it. But I started as a kid playing ukulele, went to guitar, and I was just playing chords and singing Western songs and like that. And then in school, we got a guy that originally came from Dansville. Their name's Roberts, Norm Roberts. And he got me started playing jazz. And he says, you listen to this one, listen to that one, do this and do that. And he never spoke, but infrequently. But everything he told me was right on the money, and that was so important. And then I went from there, and I tried to listen to the best. But guitar players were far and few between back in those days. It was, well, that's about it. I used to tramp all over Buffalo trying to get records of the best guitar players, and it was very hard to get because everything was big bands and horns then, and guitars weren't featured too much. But anyway, that's the way it was. Listen to the best, play the best you can, practice, and have the passion.
Gee, Eric, you got a lot to live up to.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever make it.
Actually, I think he's doing just fine. I think he's doing just fine. How many nights a week would you play in dances in, 1940, 50, 50s, something?
During the war, there was a lot of dances. We were playing Thursday nights in Tuscarora, a big town, you know. And we'd pack them full because that's about all they had. And the rationing was on, the gasoline rationing and tires and everything. It was, we were playing, I would say 4 and 5 nights a week during the war with that band. And then I got my own band started. And then at the end of the war, I went with J.N. White and his group. And Norm Roberts, my music teacher. We started playing you know, the little more jazz stuff and not so much square dances. But they were, I would say, Woody, we used to play pretty well in our best years, at least 3 times a week. And, but the average was like Friday and Saturday nights. Because everybody worked, and you know, that's pretty rough. Work all week long and then have to go out. Work until 1 o'clock in the morning or 12. During the war, there was a curfew on. You couldn't stay out after 12 o'clock unless you were on business, and all the farmers carried eggs and stuff in the back of the car. Remember that area? Oh, Jim, a lot of fun.
There's another story. There's a lot of the bands, the square dance bands, took their cues from a couple of kind of famous ones. Floyd Woodhall, the Woodhall Boys from Elmira, but near Woodhall, New York, Southern Tier, and that was a very popular band around here, and they made recordings that traveled all over the country. And the Hornellsville Hillbillies was another real popular group around here, and kind of going with that country image, Hornellsville Hillbillies especially would dress up and put on fake mustache and beard and kind of sometimes even black out a tooth, you know, and wear country-ish clothes. And I know Roger had one experience when Kelly's Old Timers decided to adopt that look for a while to kind of go with the bib overalls. And didn't you go to a certain function in that get-up, and what happened?
Well, we used to play for the Shriners in Buffalo. We went up in bib overalls in the Statler Hotel, and some woman looked at us and said, "That's an awful thing to come in here with." She was one of the powder pigeons, you know. And we laughed. I said, "This is our uniform." I said, "You know, bib overalls back then." It was farmers, you know. And we wore derbies, a bowler, whatever you want to call it, and bib overalls. We had a lot of fun doing that. It would raise a few eyebrows. No, we didn't think anything about it, but a lot of people thought it was out of place, you know, like square doorknobs and.
Especially when you break into the swing tunes, right?
Roger, you played with Elmer Brewer quite a little bit.
Yeah, Elmer gave me.
They tried to make a farmer out of him. They couldn't make a farmer out of him, so they sent him to Rochester in a ride. A friend of mine once said he's been fiddling around ever since.
Brewer hated farming, and poor Vernie, his old man there, you know, he did everything. But Elmer loved that fiddle. He got me started. He was a pretty good taskmaster. He was down.
Played a lot.
Yeah, he played a lot of dances. And I thank Elmer.
You know who the right was that said that? Okay, my partner. Our Ken.
Yeah. Yeah. Brewer, he was quite a guy. He was always late, never on time. And one night we were playing over at the Legion Hall. Brewer come in and he didn't have any gas in the car during the war, and he coasted all the way down Liberty Hill and got into the dance hall. And then he had to find gas to get home with that. Oh, there was a lot of good time there. We had to be out of that hall at 8 o'clock, or midnight, because the neighbors didn't want that racket over there, you know.
Way longer than that for us firemen, though, when they got it.
We've been talking about Woody Kelly. I want to just play a little bit, jury rig this here a little bit. Roger mentioned that they played up in Kodak in the 50s, and the fact that there was a recording studio there in Building 28. And that's kind of a remarkable thing. They had the state-of-the-art recording studio, and the band was recorded at that time, which means now they have some old reel-to-reel high-quality recordings that they were able to actually put on the CD that they made a year ago. Kind of neat to have something from about 50 years ago and to show a continuation of the band from then up to the present time. A lot of bands didn't have didn't have a high quality recording like that at that time. People weren't necessarily in recording studios at all. It was a little bit of a treat. Just want to play a little bit of Woody calling. And some of you, who danced to Kelly's Old Timers and remembers Woody calling? Yeah, a fair portion here. But just so you can hear a little bit of the style, he was, what everyone has said, that he was unrivaled, a great caller, great accordion player, especially for the dances. While I'm setting that up, if you want to say something, you can.
Well, what can I say? He run his band and he run it well. And he knew what he wanted, and that's playing accordion and calling. Now that's quite a task, you know, playing that stomach Steinway and trying to run your mouth at the same time. It isn't the easiest job in the world. He did it very well. Not because he was my brother.
I know Doug and I both have, Doug in particular, but I have some fond memories. I got started when Uncle Woody was still alive. Started playing bass with him when I was about 12. And before that, I know Doug used to go out on jobs years ago with him and help him with equipment and do things like that. So we had that experience growing up. And once again, you don't realize the experience when you're growing up in it. And you look back at it and say, wow, that was neat to have. And we're thankful we had that.
This is a little bit of, from one of those Kodak Park recordings, at a dance up there. And it's probably one of the times when he actually, a little excerpt of when he was teaching people at the beginning how to do the dance. A lot of times the fellow would just go, you know, expect everyone had already learned how to do it, grown up learning how to dance, and didn't really need instruction. But this is one of those points where he gave a little bit of instruction.
Lead to the right, 4 hands round. 2 ladies in the center with your right hands round and around. Gentlemen, stand right still. Girls, keep turning. When your partner comes around, take her with the left hand, turn her right around and promenade. 2 couples only. Then you take that couple, lead to the next, 6 hands around. 3 ladies in the center, right hands across. Gents, stand still. Keep a walking, girls. And when you come around in front of your partner, take him and promenade right around to the left. Promenade to the right, return to the left. That's right. And then you circle 8 hands around and do the same thing. Let's try it out. Down the middle left. Meet Tommy with the grand right and left. You meet her over yonder and promenade back home. She's walking floor over you. First couple in to the right, 4 hands round. 2 ladies in the center, right hands around. Then turn over and do a two-leaf over. Promenade around, 2 couples, promenade. On to the next circle, up 6
Doug talk to you a little bit about Colin, but we'll have him play something else here first.
Okay.
I love putting him on the spot.
Sure.
Everybody got a birthday? We play happy birthday.
I think they've got about 5,095 tunes in their repertory, so.
We started playing this song again, just number one because it's a great song. I think I've told this story 100 times, but I was at a baccalaureate. I teach over in Perry and have to be at the baccalaureate services, which I always enjoy. And this particular year, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Reverend Vogel, Don Vogel from the Perry Center Church, gave the sermon. And the whole sermon was based on this song. It was all about this song and how it can relate to the kids' lives. And it's the first and only baccalaureate service that I've ever seen a sermon get a standing ovation from 18-year-olds. And this sermon, based on this song, got a standing ovation. So we dedicate this one to Don Vogel a lot of the times that we play it. So here it is.
Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear that interact? Well, happy sound is your feet. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade, those blues on parade. I'm not afraid, 'cause rubber turned over if I never had said I'd be rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear that interact? Well, that happy sound is your feet. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk the shade, those blues on parade. Just at my feet on the sunny side of the street. On the sunny side of the street. On the sunny side of the street. Thanks very much. That song makes me think there's a lot of these old tunes that we play that I'll get the sheet music out to, and a lot of what we hear on the radio or what groups like ours play are only a very small part of the tune. We play the chorus over and over and take solos and things like that and occasionally change keys. But all these great old tunes, Dad can tell you more about it, they had verses to them.
Nobody ever hears the verses, and sometimes the verses were the most beautiful part of the whole song.
There.
And yeah,
The reason was 2:55, 2 minutes 55 seconds on a record. That's all they had. And they had these big bands, and they didn't have time to put all that other stuff on unless, so that was it.
good answer.
10-inch, 78.
And with bands like this, some of the dance bands, right? This is a dance band. And I'm waiting to see someone, yeah, so waiting to see someone in the back get up and start going. You have to come over here in the little gift shop area and do a little tight dance there. A lot of bands around here actually play quite a variety of music. You know, if you were around the area and someone wanted you to come play for a wedding, they wanted an Italian tune, you could play it. Yeah, see, there you go. Or Polish tunes, you know, there's a few different ethnic groups around here, and a lot of the bands just had a repertoire that they could go in and slide into many different groups and be able to play something that all the different people could recognize and enjoy. So, and also, you know, everyone is just playing one instrument here tonight, but these people are pretty versatile. Roger can play piano and probably many other things I don't even know about. Eric plays bass and guitar and sings and piano, and you probably do something else that I don't know. Guy takes a turn on bass, and what else? Just about everything.
Whatever we need.
Whatever they need. So I don't know if it's something about growing up in the environment where you're not really locked into one thing. You kind of get the whole picture, and they're encouraged to try the several instruments, or maybe they're just really talented and the rest of us don't know any better. I'd go along with that. I wanted to ask Doug to just talk a little bit about the work he's done over the past couple of years, getting some of the pictures and old recordings and stuff together, organizing them. It's really wonderful for someone like me who works in documenting traditions and arts around here to find people who are practitioners of those arts, who also have the passion and dedication to start conserving them and putting them together and organizing them and really paying attention to that. And they're really, really gems in the community. I've gotten to meet a number in the past few years. So, I don't know. I just wanted Doug to say maybe a little bit about how he started digging through some of the old calls and how they decided to come up with a recording.
Thank you. First thing, I wanted to go and just mention a little bit about, she mentioned about everybody being able to play multiple instruments. I don't, but I have enough trouble with that one, just getting it in and out of the car. My children, all three of them, play multiple instruments, and I think probably Eric can vouch for this. People have asked me over the years, how do you get all three of your kids involved in music and get them to do different instruments and all of that? And I'm convinced that what parents have to do is to make those instruments available in the house and have them piano, in the case in my house there was always a bass fiddle standing in the corner, at least for the last years while my children were in high school. And you have to tolerate them. The first time they pick them up and start making some of the most god-awful sounds you ever heard in your life, instead of yelling at them and telling them to be quiet, I'm listening to the news, you've got to tolerate it and encourage them to do it. And they will do it. Because I never met a kid yet that didn't like music. It's just in them. And so that's all I wanted to say about that. But I took a couple of lessons in 5th and 6th grade from a teacher at Perry School named Herbert Naskowitz. And he was a bassist, and he was excellent. He played with a bow, and as a kid growing up, I used to go to the dances with Dad and sit there and watch Keith Morgan, and Keith would slap that bass and spin it around in circles and kick it and play drums on it, and he was a exceptional bass player, and he played a lot with a lot of groups, and I always thought, God, I'd like to play one of those things someday. So I took lessons in school, and then when I went to high school, there was no string music program anymore. So that kind of ended it, and of course it was tough growing up as a kid in the 60s when that was not a cool thing to do. So it kind of got dropped, and along in the 1968, Keith Morgan passed away, and my dad tried everything he could to get me to play that and to play with him, and I never did it, and it's my main regret that I have that I did not do that. But we used to have a fellow by the name of Bill Loop that played guitar. He played rhythm guitar, excellent rhythm guitar player, and an excellent vocalist. And he liked Western tunes, and riding down the canyon and smoke that cigarette, and there was a lot of tunes that he used to sing, and we had recordings of some of those Kodak jobs and so forth that Roger had, and Bill Loop has lived in Florida for a long time, and he came back up, and we had a picnic, and we made some more recordings, and we had all these things, and Eric and I kind of started working at that time on the idea of putting a CD together, or tapes is what we started with, and tapes really wasn't a good idea because they don't keep. And so later on, when the band got going as it is now, we decided, we had so many people at dances that asked us for something, so we put this one together that's kind of dated, and it comes up through, and the newest ones are on there. Karen asked about the square dances. I could see square dances sort of disappearing real fast. Jim Kimball down at the college probably has done the most work of anybody that I know to preserve square dances, and he's recorded sessions with Ken Roloff. I started playing, actually my first few jobs I played for the first few years with Ken Roloff from Marilla, and he had a square dance band that was just like this one. It was accordion, and it was much like what my dad did. And I had all these recordings of these square dances, and I had some of Ken Lau's and Ken Roloff's and some of Dad's, and the tapes were starting to fall apart. And I sat down and I spent a lot of time one winter writing them all out by hand, listening to the tapes and writing, and I wrote a whole list of them out by hand, and then put them on my computer and sent them to Jim and Karen and everybody, so that there's a few copies of it around someplace. And so hopefully, most callers do them different. Everybody changes them a little bit to suit themselves, and Ken Roloff's were a little bit different than my dad's and Ken Lau's. And so in the process of doing that, I learned a few, and I call some of them, Eric calls some of them, and we get through the night pretty well with square dances. So, and it's been a lot of fun too. It's fun working with the Council of the Arts. It's fun to see the people, and it's fun to see them have a good time dancing. So, you add anything to that?
Well, just one of the ways that we got all this stuff digitized and put onto CD was because of the Arts Council. Must have been 5-6 years ago. Karen contacted me or Dad or somebody, I don't remember, maybe Doug, and said, you know, your dad has all these old recordings. We want to get them down so they don't disappear. So that, of course, was an interesting process. Dad ran a recording studio out of our house back in the 1950s and 60s. And he recorded rock bands and whoever else and country bands that wanted to come in. And I remember as a little kid, you know, sitting on the floor playing my Rock'em Sock'em Robots as all these hippie guys were coming through the house and, you know, smelling of various things, going into the recording studio to record. So I told Dad about this. I said, hey Dad, Karen called and the Arts Council wants to put on CD all your old stuff you have on tape. I said, where is it? And he looks at me. Well, there's a lot of it under the bed in a box, and there's a whole bunch more out in the barn, but I have no idea where that is, so you better get at the stuff under the bed. So we pulled these tapes out, and I'm telling you dirty secrets here, Father, but the tapes were old. The tapes were very old. They were covered with mold, they were brittle, and we were really scared at first that a lot of them weren't going to work, but they did. And a lot of the stuff that we took for the Kelly's Old Timer CD that's back there is actually stuff that was digitized thanks to the Council on the Arts. And there was just miles and miles and hours of stuff that we sifted through. And when Doug and I know when we sat down to start listening to what we should put on here, boy, did it bring back a lot of memories, a lot of lumps in our throats too when we were sitting in the studio, you know, tweaking the bass or the treble or cleaning this up and cleaning that up. But it's all because of the Council on the Arts and that we could find that box under Dad's bed. So, and now someday we'll find the one out in the barn. I don't know where that one is.
After my father passed away, Roger kind of kept the band going by using whoever he could get to fill in and keep it going. And of course, one of the main things as far as the square dancing went was that we had available Ken Lau. And Ken is still, he lives in Pavilion, and he's kind of confined to home most of the time now. And he called, I guess his last job a year ago or so, about a year ago. But he's, if you know Ken, send him a card or call him on the phone. I know he loves to visit with people and he doesn't see a lot of them, but I'd like to do When the Bloom is on the Sage, just kind of for Kenny, part of it, one call through or something like that, and we'll give that a try. And
sure.
And, Guy will play the bass.
When we're getting switched over here, I'd like to, we're talking all about the three of us here and our relatives, but I want to introduce the drummer who has really been a blessing to get into this band, because not only is Tom a great drummer, but he's just a heck of a nice guy and an easy fella to get along with. A lot of drummers are high-strung, you know. You always get, you have to need a tongue sometimes when you're working with him. But Tom he's always there. He plays great drums. He's a great, you know, plays stuff like this. He's a good rock drummer. And he's also played with Kelly's Old Timers. What was that we were talking about the other night? 25 years ago you did too on a few jobs. So Tom's a veteran and a good friend of ours. And of course Mr. Mack has been my best friend forever, and he's a phenomenal musician. We joke about the band. The three, Doug and I and Tom, play it straight, just play it simple, and we let Dad and Guy have all the fun and take off because they're the ones that can do that stuff the best, so we let them do it.
This is one of those Floyd Woodhall dances that she mentioned when we first started here, and it's a tune that's written to when it's roundup time in Texas. It's one of those Western song square dances, and Kenny Lau, he liked to call it when your bloomers are on the sage, but it was one of his that he liked to do, and so I'd like to do it for you, and thinking about Kenny.
Key of F, Doug, is that? G? Well, wait a minute, you know, we just got that. We better do it in F, I think.
Think so?
Yeah, because we played it in that the other night.
All right.
Take it away, Dad. Now you follow the corner lady. Now follow your own.
lady, leap to the right, gentlemen, leap to the left. Gentlemen, go for the lady, gentlemen, right to the gentleman, up the lady again, gentlemen, right to the gentleman, back to the center, swing your partner. Now that same lady, leap to the left, gentlemen, leap to the right, gentlemen, up to the lady, gentlemen, right to the gentleman, gentlemen, up to the lady again, gentlemen, right to the gentleman, now back to the center, swing your partner. Now home you go with a do-si-do in the corner, do-si-do. Swing your partner twice around. Element left on the corner, element right with your partner. Go back with element left once more with a grand old right and left around. It's round all time in Texas, in the movies on the scene. I'd rather be in Texas, just riding on the rain. You smell a bacon bread, eggs falling in the pan. Every day is a big ride, it's a down the Rio Grande. Now I'll join hands and forward and back. Forward again with a big thing, yeah. Element up in the corner, element right with your partner. Go back and element once more with a right around. There you go.
That tune was #1 on the hit parade in 1932 or 3. I got a book home, it's got all this stuff in it. It's really interesting, really interesting.
There you go, Carol.
Thank you. I think he's got a future ahead of him, Colin, right? We're kind of getting near the end here. But we should give you the opportunity to ask some questions. Someone wants to know something out there.
I want to ask you, Doug. Roger.
Yeah.
I want to ask you what some of your good stories about when you started playing Kissing in the Moonlight.
Yeah, I remember the first time I danced that. You never want to go to a dance where everybody knows you when they're playing that. But a lot of stories about that. A lot of guys, they don't want, they're shy, and the girls, they keep circling, and you got the other guys at the set, they're pulling their pant legs up, and all that stuff. Anything to stir the soup, and keep it from burning.
About the fight in the school parking lot that broke out so they could get the principal to go out.
Oh yeah, over in let's see, that was in Alexander. They had a principal there, boy. He was puritanical school, But anyways, so they set it up. He wouldn't let him play. He wouldn't let us play the moonlight dance. And usually we saved that to the last when everybody was warmed up, and their engines were idling nice, and all that. And so the guys cooked it up. They went and started a fight out in the parking lot. And Prof went out there to see what was going on. And when he was out, he gave us a signal, and we did the dance. Well, you got to keep the thing going,
I just wanted to mention quick that I know that we had a CD here that we opened up tonight that didn't have an insert inside. There should be I know a bunch of you purchased the CD and should have a paper insert that has a history of the group on one side and a list of songs on the other. It's just a white page in the front. And if anybody got one that doesn't have that, by all means, give me a call at home. We got a website you can go on, kellysoldtimers.com there, www, with pictures and downloads and things that are kind of fun. My son teaches in a military school in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. We won't get into that, but he set this beautiful website up that's there, and but just call me on the phone. You've all got a telephone. Give me a call. I'm in the book under Perry, and I'll be glad to stick one in the mail and send it to you if you got a CD that didn't have one in it. Yes?
How are all of you related now?
Oh boy. You want me to do it, or do you want to?
Go, Doug. Well, it's simple, but complex at the same time. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Roger is my dad's brother, and they married two sisters. One is sitting right over here. It's from the same family with the same mother and all of that. So Eric and I are double cousins. Now, there's nothing funny about that. I know in some places, but it's two brothers, two sisters. There was a lot of that, I know, years ago, but my mother and Lois, I'm sure, met my dad and Roger through the dance jobs, and some of them, I know my mother lived in Perry Center with her sister, who was married to a farmer here in Perry, and she lived with them for a while, and they used to go to the dances up to Silver Lake, and she met my dad that way, and I think that probably Lois was kind of the same way.
How about the horn player?
Eric and Guy went right straight through school together. You graduate together?
No,
works?
No, a little older than Guy. Guy and I played another band together. We started our first band when he was 12 and I was 13. Yep, we used to have our parents go with us to all the dance jobs we played at, because we played in a lot of restaurants and bars and things like that, and we weren't old enough to be there, so we had to have a parent with us all the time, and we've had a lot of fun over the years. And it was good to get Guy in Kelly's Old Timers. Added a real good flair that we needed.
What was the name of your first band?
Name of the first band was Aries. Why, I have no idea. We were 12 and 13 years old.
Roger?
Yes, sir.
Musicians usually have some type of special relationship with their instrument. Is there a story behind your guitar? How long have you had it? Have you got a name for it? Anything like
This
that?
thing?
Yeah.
Sarah, yeah. I don't bring her name out in public too often, but I will tonight. Now, I wanted to say something that Doug was telling about dancing. When we were young, the parents went to the dance with the children, and they learned square dancing with their parents and everything. But something came along in 1948 and 49 that changed all that. Uncle Milty, I Love Lucy. They stayed home and the kids went. And of course then you know what happens. And that's what happened to a lot of the conventional, type of dancing. And that's all I want to say on that. But on this guitar, what was the question again, please?
Story behind it, Dad.
This guitar?
Yeah, where'd you buy it? How long have you had it?
Oh, okay. I got out of service, and I went to Roxy, and I said, I want a electric guitar. And he let me try a number of them, and he said, I will order you 2 of the newer models. And there was a Les Paul model, and this one. This was similar, except it was a hollow body. And I tried both of them, and this is the one. I took it out of the case, and I said, that's it. Just love it first sight. And I've had it ever since.
He's got a twin to that at home, too, that he doesn't play. Sits upstairs in the corner.
Same mother, different father.
I think this show just went from rated G to PG.
I got a couple of comments about Kelly's Old Timers. The last I can remember Woody playing, I was over to Cancerega. They used to play square dances over there. And if I believe that, Woody was played the accordion box. And I used to listen to the waltzes and that beautiful music come out of that accordion box. And the other thing is, I've heard your CD, and I've heard Roger's guitar on there, which I've always loved guitar. Chet Atkins and Les Paul and all those, I've always been my heroes for that. But I said, man, Roger's got talent. I heard it on the CD.
Yeah, that was the newer stuff that we laid down. Basically, what we did. Of course, you can go into a studio these days and do overdub, just lay one instrument on top of another. But we really didn't do that. Maybe in one little instance where we had to fix something, we really didn't even know what we were going to do. We had all the old stuff sitting there, And we went down to the studios. Gary Holt has a wonderful studio just between Perry and Mount Morris. He does some just quality work. We just sat down and played some stuff, and we took the best of what came out, and I don't know, it took us about a couple hours, but we had fun. We just went in and approached it as a dance job, and we just sat down and played. I think maybe a couple things we did 2 takes of. Indiana. I know we opened up with Indiana in the recording session, and it just didn't gel. Didn't feel well. Didn't feel good to us. So then Guy says, let's do another one. So we did it at the end, and that cut worked well for us. But yeah, we'll before we end, I think we'll feature Dad on a number, because the reason we still can call this group Kelly's Old Timers is because of him, and so we like to feature him. Any other questions?
I don't know if you can speak about it, if it's illegal or not, but there used to be something like they called the fake book.
Oh, sure.
A lot of the bands had the fake book or something.
Yeah, a fake book. As a matter of fact, I got your fake book, Dad. It's safe and it's in the house. Dad writes the list on the wall. Whenever I borrow anything, he writes the list on the wall, what I've borrowed. Yeah, a fake book, they even have legal ones now, but years ago, what all that is for guys that play popular music and jazz, it's just the lead or the melody written out with a chord over the top, and the words. And years ago, those were illegal because it infringed on copyright law and things like that. But there were hundreds and thousands out there way back then, and now they're legal. People go through the legal channels. But, oh yeah, we've all used them. If you want to look up a tune and you don't want to have to buy the sheet music, you get the fake book version of it, and it's a melody line and a chord, and you learn it from that. A lot of jazz guys use those.
Back on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I mean, you chase these bands. They went all over. You guys are responsible for a lot of marriages, too.
Yeah, Doug.
I'll just mention that there are several cases where Dad, Roger, Keith, and Curly, and those guys played for the weddings, and we've done the 50th wedding anniversary for the same couple, and that's been a real privilege. That's nice to be able to do that.
Probably more marriages made at square dances than in church on Sunday morning.
Well, no, my Dad always told me the square dances were good, clean fun. That was.
Well, listen, marriage is not bad. That's where I met my wife, my first wife.
Okay.
Anything else before we? Okay, well, why don't we finish up? We'll feature Dad on a number. This is a Les Paul tune, and it's on the CD as well. So we'll push it a little bit. This is called "The World Is Waiting for the Sunrise." See if I can remember it.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Kelly's. Donnie Kahn just wanted to ask us, you plan anywhere coming up? Where are you going to be?
We're actually, this is, actually there isn't, right at this point in time, I don't think there's anything public coming up. There will be. We'll just keep an eye on the papers. We've got a private square dance in September. But there'll be some more stuff coming up, and hopefully next summer we'll start work again on another CD with some more of the old tapes that we'll clean up and have some fun with, and we'll record some other stuff as well. So we want to thank you for your support too on that CD. That's wonderful. It's a pleasure to play for you folks. That's what it really is. We wouldn't do it if we didn't love it and have all you nice people coming out and listening. Thank you. God bless America.